Jordan and Gretzky, Serena and Ruth. Remembering great ones is easy to do. But what about the no-names who spent their whole lives long snapping footballs and catching sack flies? They're guys, remember that guy. Remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy. They're just gonna remember some guys now.
We're going to take a look at this, what appeared to be a home run robbery, and everybody in the ballpark is looking at it, as is Major League Baseball. And this, that looked like it would have been Remember That Guy, the show we mine our memories for nuggets of nostalgia about peripheral players past and present. Hey there, folks, it is me, one of your hosts, James, here with a fellow felonious fielder.
Listen, sometimes you got to get in there, even if it's not your job, even if they tell you, hey, you're just a little kid, you're not supposed to be robbing home runs. Sometimes you got to say, damn you, society. I am a little kid, and I am going to climb this wall, and I am going to catch this ball. That's what I said when I was a kid. Diaz back with you once again. We do have a very special guest with us. He is trying to outlaw home run robberies. Please introduce yourself.
That's right. It's me, Junior Caminero. I can't jump to catch them myself, so I want to make sure that no one can take mine away.
Xavier, here's the question. The home run is robbed. Right? Like, we've established there was a home run. The fielder robs it. The fielder, in theory, at that point, has possession of the home run, right? That's what that would imply.
I guess.
So when the fielder then, tosses the ball away, does that constitute unclaimed property?
I mean, maybe tangible property. Unfortunately, I deal with intangible property. If something's tangibly located in a state, it's pretty clear where it should go if it is unclaimed.
So what you're saying is you can't help me sue Jeffrey Mayer?
I cannot, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You know something you are capable of doing? I'm pretty sure, at least. I don't want to make too many assumptions, but I'm pretty sure that you'd be able to tell me what's making memories for you right now.
Yeah, remember when I talked about the horse game last week?
Yep.
I have more news. And this time, it's actually related to horse racing. One of the characters in the game, her name is Haru Urara, and she is, one of the one-star characters, one of the lower-tier characters, but she's a bubbly, pink-haired girl, and she has become a fan favorite because the horse that she is named after has a record 0 wins and 113 losses in her career, spanning from 1998 to 2004.
So okay, immediately you said that number, and with the amount of research we've done into horse racing on this show, I was, thinking, okay, so you've got maybe some year 2 races, definitely year 3 races, and maybe some year 4, and like 113 of those 3, but you're thinking a 6-year racing career by this horse.
Yes.
Is that standard in Japan?
I'm not sure if it's standard, but it is very above average. And she actually became famous in Japanese media after getting her 80th consecutive loss back in June 2003. It was called the Shining Star of Losers Everywhere. And this has come back to the forefront with the Western audience discovering her. And what's fascinating about this, a racehorse that loses 113 out of 113 races is not a wealthy racehorse. She has been adopted by a farm in Japan that tries to take care of old racehorses. There is a website called the Namabokuso Bank, which allows you to pick a horse and donate fresh ryegrass to that horse to help old retired horses. And Haru Urara is one of those horses. And since this game was released, people have donated over 2,500 kilograms of ryegrass, breaking the website. For context, 5 kilograms of this grass costs $40. So they have donated over $20,000 worth of grass to this old retired racehorse to help her live out her life. And the farm has posted on social media about how overwhelmed they are with support. They posted a picture of the horse with a little pink flower in her hair, talking about how thankful they are. And I'm like, gamers are doing something good for a horse that deserves it.
It would be pretty funny if it turns out the horse is an asshole and is not sharing any of this with the other horses, because clearly it will not, in the rest of its life, consume 2,500 kilograms of barley grass, unless some horse scientist wants to tell me I'm talking on my ass there. What does the horse think? Because these horses probably have some idea that, like, every once in a while they get grass, and it's just a fun thing. I'm just trying to get into the mindset of this horse, who all of a sudden, I'm sure they don't get to show it the full 2,500 kilograms, but they have to have, like, probably shown it some giant mound of grass that just blew its mind, right? This Peter
Probably.
Buckley tomato can horse. What did you think you were going to learn in the 113th race that you didn't learn in the first 112 races? Like, how do you get in that many races to lose?
It's kind of crazy to think about, because this horse had its, 15 minutes of fame 22 years ago and is still alive for a second bite of the apple or bite of the ryegrass, as it may be. And like, it's just so nice, because like, we see so much about, the really awful things that happen to racehorses. I mean, heck, one of the racehorses in the game is Rice Shower. Rice Shower is a depressed girl with like one of those goth Victorian hats on at all times, because she was euthanized on track after getting injured and they being unable to be dragged off the track to be euthanized elsewhere. So the fact that one of these horses is a lovable loser and still alive to actually reap the benefits of the popularity from this game, like, makes me very happy.
I am glad, like you said, that this is something positive coming from the world of video games, being that is the world from which most of the evil in the world has derived from originally in the last decade or so. Diaz, is your memory this week at all horse-related, by any chance?
Not horse-related. It is racing-related. And it is, I will preface, a little bit of a downer. Because in the same day that I learned about Fauja Singh, have you heard of Fauja Singh?
I have not.
I've not either.
Fauja Singh is the oldest marathon runner in the history of humanity. He was the first person to ever do it past the age of 100. He ran his first marathon at older than 100. Now, Guinness didn't verify it because, 100 years ago in India, record keeping wasn't great. So you can't, there's no, actual 100% verification of what his birthday was. But he became the first man to do this in 2011. That was 14 years ago. So you might be wondering, what happened to Fauja Singh? Fauja Singh was alive and well yesterday. As we record today, he has unfortunately passed away.
This is legitimately the worst curse we have ever...
Well, I'll put it this way. It wasn't caused because I learned about both these things at once. I'm just separating them.
Okay, God.
The universe knew that you were about to find out and had to make this happen.
Yeah, God, I thought we killed a second person after Henry Kissinger.
No, we didn't kill a second person. A motor vehicle killed a person. Back in the village in India in which he grew up, he had lived 114 years. Not illness, not age, not anything could take him. But some dumbass in a motor vehicle did unfortunately take him. I don't mean to make light of any of this. This is an incredible achievement that he accomplished at the age of 100. He continued to he did his last race. I think it was in 2014. He ran a 10K, and very clearly, still was staying mobile. He was crossing the road on his own when this happened. So, rest in peace, Fauja Singh. An incredible achievement, and when you're in the middle of a marathon training block, sometimes you get inspiration from certain things. Fauja Singh, if he can do it at 100, I can do it at 32.
Just avoid cars, please.
Yes. No, I exclusively run on bike trails.
We're doing it for Fauja this year.
We are.
There's two things I want to talk about real quick. One really quick, one a little longer. I just want to mention that the NFL is getting their new headsets from Sony this year. And I particularly enjoy how there's a sentence in the press release about this where it says, the headset also underwent extensive drop testing against the physical demands of the sidelines. which is the polite way that they put in this press release of, we made sure that when coaches drop this shit on the ground, it's not going to break as easily because we know they're going to throw a tantrum and try and break their fucking headphones. And good on you, Sony, for being ready for that.
I wonder, like, do they bring in specialists for that? Like, I would bring in Rob Gronkowski. If it can stand up to a Gronk spike, then it's definitely going to be safe with the coaches.
See, I don't think you can bring in a Rob Gronkowski because a Rob Gronkowski is a big buff man who can just throw something simply at the ground and it will just break it. So he doesn't think to throw it in more impassioned ways necessarily. I think you have to get a coach for this. You have to get someone in that mindset because they're going to do some whips with the wrist. They're going to be artists with the destruction of the headset. Anyway, Diaz, the reason I asked you whether your memories had anything to do with horses is the main memory I want to talk about also has to do with horses. We've now made this making memories into a horse bread sandwich. So, Kofi Aboa, as a creator I enjoy a lot, he is best known for the Fumble Dimension. He did with Secret Base, and he once did a video seeing how well a team of 25 Shohei Ohtanis would do through video game simulations. Because, like, that's an attractive idea. You know, you take your best player, you've got a guy that's the best, just make a whole team out of him, and there you go. And that is becoming a reality in the hoitiest and toitiest of all sports. Do you guys know what that sport is?
Okay.
Croquet is very close, but there is a way that croquet can be hoitier and toitier.
Polo.
Yes, it's by adding horses. Polo is just horse croquet. What country do you think has the biggest, like, polo scene?
It's not England. I think I know this. I heard Mongolia does like ridiculous polo stuff.
No, Mongolia's very into horse spaces, but
I'll throw out, in honor of Nikola Jokic, Serbia.
It is not Serbia. We are going south of the border to Argentina. Argentina is the hotbed of polo in the world. That is where you'll find the very unfortunately named for someone from Argentina, Adolfo Cambiaso, who is one of the world's like best polo players for the last 35 years, since 1990 when he was like a teen. He is one of, if not the greatest player ever. But he will be quick to tell you, and as will anyone in the sport, that it is about as much, if not more so, the horses in it all. Adolfo is very concerned about his legacy as he's getting older here in the 2000s. He's got his son, Adolfo Jr., who is also a rising superstar. And so around 2000, he starts this huge horse breeding program to keep the strong lines of horses that he has around. There is a major incident in the 2006 Argentine Final Open, which is the national championship there, huge deal in the polo world. There's an injury to one of his horses, a.k.a. a stallion, who was put down months later, but he saved some of his tissue, because this is about a decade after Dolly, the sheep, had been cloned, and technology has continued along those lines in the world of animals specifically. And so he kind of had this in mind, like, what if I could just make more of the good horse? Well, a couple years later, there is a partnership formed between Cambiaso, this really rich tycoon from Argentina, Ernesto Gutierrez, and a Texan tycoon, Alan Meeker, who starts Crestview Genetics. And they start just pumping out clones of this horse. It is estimated that around August of 2015, there may be like 300 total cloned polo horses in the world. So they'd already been doing it in that like decade post-Dolly. Around just a couple years ago, there are thousands of embryos being produced by Crestview Genetics alone. And not all of those are coming to fruition, but the scene has absolutely exploded. Around that same time, 2016, Cambiaso actually wins an Argentine Final Open with a team composed exclusively of identical clones, not of a.k.a. but Quartatera, a mare, has been phenomenal. And so we have this team of 6 Quartateras, each with like a little number letter designation after them. Everything's growing great. He's raking it in. They're selling off some of these horses, but they'll make it very clear. Look, we'll sell you the offspring of a clone. We'll not sell you the clone. You can't have the exact genetic line. You can have an offspring where it's going to be a little bit different. It'll have some of those traits, but we will not sell you a straight up clone. So all this is going on. They're making good money. They're working this trade. And then it finally starts to come apart in about 2020. Word gets out that Meeker, the Texan, started like getting in conversations with other buyers. And he'd, again, been selling plenty of other buyers the offspring. But it comes out he's talking to this Russian oligarch, Andrei Borodin, an expat in the UK. bought the best possible Polo team and put himself on it because he's like kind of fine. And the way Polo handicaps work is you can just get away with that because there's few enough people playing Polo that as long as the rest of the team kicks ass, then you're fine. Anyway, he's like, I'm going to buy some of these clones. This is a betrayal of the highest order on Mika's part of Cambioso. And this comes out that he's not just trying to sell these 3 clones. He was talking to Borodin. He's talking to buyers in the UAE. He's talking to buyers in China. He's talking to at least one buyer in Argentina, Bartolome Castagnola, who is not just a rival of Cambioso's, he is his brother-in-law. This is just like, all of this shit is just a soap opera level betrayal over these horse clones. And it goes to court, finally gets in front of a U.S. judge in April of 2024, and finally in March of this year, it was settled, just about 2 years, sadly, following the passing of the OG Quartetera. You know, she did not live to see justice get meted out here, but there are still dozens of Quarteteras, after all. Both Adolfos are now on the pro circuit, the senior and the junior, who has actually beaten his dad in at least one Argentine final now, on a bunch of cloned horses, so they've got plenty more of these horses around, and like, I just so thoroughly wish that I could have known more about this and that there was like a better terminus to the story right now, because what is a game-breaking guy if not a dude who just decides, fine, I'll make the best horse over and over and over again and just ride that forever?
I mean,
it isn't.
Be careful if he's making 50 of the same horse. Like, eventually there's gonna be some issues with lineage there. Because, like, oops, I accidentally bred this horse with a son of its genetic duplicate.
Well, they're doing less and less breeding. But, like, he still has his breeding operation, but they're just cloning. Like, they have the cells to just keep doing it. They don't have to worry too much about the inbreeding. Like, the horses just don't need to breed in the first place. Now, I don't think they're doing Jurassic Park, like, sterilized style them. But, that's the clone horse story from Argentina Polo world. And that is, I think, a pretty good instance of someone trying to break the game. And that is what we are here to do today. We're here to discuss a season's worth of game-breaking guys in this new format. And let's just go ahead and tell you guys how this is going to work exactly. As it stands, each of us has nominated 3 guys as a game-breaking guy in this season-long category. And what we're going to do to kind of recapture the energy of Reliti-Guy-tion as it was. In this new litigation, we're going to take turns discussing one another's guys. Xavier and I will discuss, for instance, the 3 guys brought forward by Diaz, Leo Diegel, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, and CFG. Diaz and Xavier will consider the 3 guys that I have, and Diaz and myself will consider the 3 on Xavier's side. And so in this way, each of us will have 1 guy selected from their trio for immediate induction. Those 3 are going in. And then at that point, there's 6 remaining. And there's no set amount that is guaranteed. Maybe we'll bring in more. Maybe we won't bring in any more. Maybe we'll bring in 2, 1, 3. Who knows? We're going to assess the candidates as they are, and we're going to see if we think anyone else needs to be in. So that's how we'll play it. We're guaranteed at least 3 inductions. We might see more. But before that, I don't know about the 2 of you. I went about preparing for this one differently. Because back when, we're churning out each of us 1 week, I tried not to overthink the decision. As soon as I've got someone for a category, I just go with it. And that's that. And I don't really, go down any paths that I don't finish. I don't have any honorable mentions, so to speak. So I wanted to share just real quick one other game-breaking guy I thought about bringing before it was replaced by others. I wasn't sure if either of you had anyone kind of in that realm that you wanted to share. I can open if you have anyone you want to think about. It's Tour season. Tour de France is going on. It's really good. It's very fast. I want to talk about that next week longer, but for now I just want to talk about Tullio Campagnolo. He was an Italian bike racer initially, and one of my favorite terms that comes up in any kind of bike racing is mechanical, which is just when something's fucked up with your bike and you got to stop and make a pit swap, make a bike swap, whatever. It is an artful way of saying something broke. And there is a story that once upon a time, supposedly in November of 1927, Tullio Campagnolo, he's in a race, it's frozen out, and he has an issue with his wheel, and the bolt is too frozen for him to get it off. So he can't do any repair in time, lose a bunch of time, lose the race. And so he decides he needs to figure out a better way to remove his wheel. And so he invents what is called the cam mechanism quick release skewer. You will often just hear it referred to as a quick release. It is a tiny little lever on the side of any kind of geared bike that just lets you immediately pop the wheel off. And it's very, very quick for switching out flat tires, making chain changes if you had to make a change to the rear cassette or a chain ring. Much easier to do all of this stuff when there is quick release to get the wheel off. And this might not sound like a lot. It is revolutionary. It's also fair to say, like, he's probably not the very first person to do something like this. He might have just been the first to kind of, perfect a marketed version of it. But he also goes on to revolutionize derailleurs, the things that basically shift you from gear to gear on a bike. He invents the twin cable parallelogram rear derailleur. I'm pretty sure that just means it's the kind that I have on now, where there's two different levers on the handles that I use for two different rear derailleurs. It's all very cool, and I went into this and I was getting really excited about the equipment because that was something I was thinking a lot with the game breaking category initially. And then I just realized, man, there's not that much more to say about this guy. Like, he had a kind of small, short, not all that interesting racing career, and he made some incredible inventions that completely changed like how any kind of bike race functions with things going wrong. And that's it. And I probably would have talked about it for maybe 10 minutes, and I think it would have kind of sucked in the end. But I just wanted to give an honorable mention to Tullio Campagnolo. Anyone for the two of you guys that kind of fits this bill?
Yeah, I got one. So one guy I really, really debated, but ended up being like the first one off my list, was David Burkhoff. David Burkhoff, Olympic swimmer. He's also Philadelphian, native Philadelphian, swam at Germantown Academy, and also swam at Foxcatcher. So I almost had a second Foxcatcher guy from the 1988 Olympics, which would have meant I'd had two nickels. But decided against it, just based on, I really liked Kathrine Switzer. But the thing that David Burkhoff is best known for is the Burkhoff Blastoff. He was a backstroke swimmer, and he found that if he essentially did a super long dolphin kick after each turn, he could decrease his times substantially. So he essentially had a 35-meter dolphin kick off of the wall. So he was essentially half of the race swimming underwater without actually doing a backstroke.
This is what they do in all strokes now, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'm picturing the right thing, because every swimmer that I see in, say, the Olympics is doing like the long kind of kick off from the wall on every turn.
So they are, but there is a limit. The current rule is 15 meters. For 15 meters, you can swim underwater after a start or turn before you have to surface and do like the actual discipline, butterfly, freestyle, backstroke. Again, he was doing 35 meters. So more than twice the current distance that is allowable. And after the 1988 Olympics, they actually put a 10-meter limit at first before they realized that one was just too punitive. But they saw him do this and said, we cannot allow it because it essentially takes away from actually doing the discipline that you're supposed to be doing because you're just swimming underwater. So he was too good at this. They had to just completely ban it immediately. And not even like a small ban, a super ban to be like, we don't want anyone to even try this again.
I love a guy who gets such a backlash that they overcorrect and then later admit that they overcorrected and come back. Like the transition from 10 meters to, okay, 15, but no more than 15.
Yeah, and the thing that's kind of sad for Burkhoff is, despite setting the world record during the Olympics, he set that during the prelims and ended up only getting the silver medal in the actual 100-meter backstroke. Don't cry for him. He got team medley gold medal, so he is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. But in the thing that he literally broke, he only got the silver because he set the world record one race too early.
Diaz, what about you? Are there any games broken that we've yet to acknowledge before we turn our eyes towards the cream of the crop?
Yeah, I did have one. There was a basketball player in the 60s, 70s, into the 80s a little bit. He invented a shot that was impossible to block. It was known as the sky hook, but I thought Kareem Abdul-Jabbar might be too good to Guy, so I didn't go with him.
Yeah, I would have been interested to see, okay, I'm exclusively presenting on Lou Alcindor, and then he just stops existing at a certain point, and we're just talking Lou Alcindor.
Right. And then, if I had done that, then, if I had 2 nickels for every great basketball player who found the Islamic faith and changed their name halfway through their career, I would have had 2 nickels, but I didn't do it.
You did not. And so that is why we have the guys that we have. Again, Xavier, you've brought Belmonte, Mullen, and Switzer. Diaz, we've got Diegel, Abdul Rauf, and ZFG. And I've got Galvin, Fosbury, and Collier. Do either of you have someone you want to lead off with for the initial 3?
Yeah, I mean, I got to lead off with the guy who made us learn that liking Zelda does not make you a nerd because Diaz likes it, so we are not nerds for enjoying it. Zelda Freak Glitcha. Like, we don't have enough speedrunners in the hall because we've never had a speedrunner in the hall, and I love the idea of bringing in someone who, literally breaks games professionally. Like, that's his whole thing is to break a game. Diaz did a great job explaining that, and I love the speedrun community. I haven't seen a lot of Zelda speedruns just because I've seen more Mario speedrunning just on the corner of the internet that I'm on. But he breaks games. That's literally his job. It's what he does, and we're not nerds if we bring him in.
We're not nerds. I don't blame you for spending more time on the Mario speedrunning community because I do feel like Mario glitches and Mario speedruns are more aesthetically pleasing, at least. Especially Mario 64. Like, so much of it is just like, yeah, belly flop to gain speed and to front flip and to triple jump. Like, it looks very aesthetically pleasing to pull off.
Whereas I did check out some of ZFG's videos, and they are pretty... It's impressive. It's incredibly impressive. I can understand why it's maybe more attractive background music more often.
Yeah, I mean, they're very mechanical, and like, some of it might be like, okay, he's just gonna, like, do bomb cancel backflips for about 5 minutes here so that he can get up to this platform. And very impressive to nail the timing on each and every one of them, but yeah, it can get a little, elevator music. But I do love ZFG.
I enjoyed ZFG very much, and Xavier, if we're putting him forth first, that means you and me are talking about Diaz's trio. To speak to the other two for one moment, kind of in their qualifications for the category itself, I do I think, put Abdul Rauf as a game breaker third, because I do think there's some precedent in the anthem protests, just looking at like the 1968 Olympics as one example with Carlson Smith. And through the 99-2000 season, I want to acknowledge there were only 37 players that at that point had averaged the same or more as Mahmoud Abdul Rauf's 3.0 3-point attempts per 36 taken in their first 6 seasons, minimum 10,000 minutes.
The world that was.
It's wild. There are only 11 players that debuted before him who did that. He is still part of the first wave, for sure. But you've already got guys like Starks, Vernon Maxwell, Dale Ellis, not to mention Reggie Miller. Like, I think that he is part of the first wave of that 3-point game breaking that he leads in, and I think he is one of the more notable in the big 4 sports anthem protesters for sure. But I think there's a little bit of precedent on each of those. To Diegel, he has the thing that is like most kind of banned in the sport of maybe anything. He kind of got the reaction I expected to see from some of these game-breaking stories in that, oh no, we simply can't allow that. You are just too good now. And I just want to contrast that breaking of the game with that of ZFG, because I think the one philosophical counterpoint to the ZFG candidacy is, in a full sport full of people who are actively working together to collectively break the game at all times, I think of the Syndrome line from The Incredibles. If everyone's special, no one is. If all of these guys are collectively working together to break a game, I'm not denying that ZFG is. It's just a question of like, does that definition serve him or Diegel better in this case when it is the point of what he does? And if you want to say, okay, if it's the point of what he does and that trounces everything else versus this guy has done that thing, he's broken a game and received a backlash, and that is now eliminated from the game for some however many decades, like 4 or 5. That's the one counter argument I put. I could be swayed to it is ZFG or Diegel for me. What is your response to kind of that argument?
I think that's fair. This might be me being biased. You know, I like speedrunning more than I like golf from the 20s. It's easy. It's an easier thing for me to look at. Like, right? Like I can go watch YouTube videos of ZFG's glitches and in speedruns. During Diaz's episode on Diegel, we tried looking at there is some old photos of what he did, but there's not a lot of visual learning out there just based off of the time period where it happened. So, like, yes, he was so good at one thing that they had to just stop it because it was unfair to everybody else, which I think is still a weird thing for me, where it wasn't like he had, some fucking insane alloy for a putter that no one else could ever use. It was a thing that really could have been adopted by other people. They just, rather than do that, it was, no, we hate you for bringing change to golf, which is a sport that does not allow change.
Well, the other thing that, just as a refresher, in his time, it was not poorly received. In fact, it was like his contemporaries were kind of like, hey, Leo does this crazy thing when he putts. It works for him. I think it's really cool. It wasn't until 30, 40 years later when people then restarted doing it that they were like, wait a second, maybe Leo Diegel was, a heretic.
Maybe Leo Diegel was a putt merchant. What would the derogatory term there be?
Short game merchant, I think, would be fun.
Something good like tennis's serve bot. Serve bot is by far my favorite derogatory term.
With Xavier still feeling strongly about ZFG, I think I'm ready to also throw my weight behind that. I think we've got our first of 3 guys from this category in.
So welcome ZFG. And now between all of Xavier's guys and all of James's guys, as I pull up the list and as I begin to contemplate.
Do you want me to go next with James's guys?
No. I'll go with James's guys. Of the 3, but Reggie Collier, I certainly appreciate the intent behind it. Of the first person to hit 1,000 and 1,000. I do think it's relevant. I think it's a good a feather in your cap, a good thing to be able to go with there. But to me, the elevator pitch always matters to me with this. And with Pud Galvin, hey, this first guy to ever take PEDs and it was a fucking, what was it? It was horse semen? Was it bull semen?
No, it wasn't semen. It was actually testicular matter, if I'm not mistaken. But it was from definitely guinea pigs, definitely chimpanzees, if I remember correctly. Horse was probably also mixed in there. Let's have another horse mentioned today. Yeah, just a bunch of different animals' testes in order to get the good juice from them.
Yeah, dude, that's fucking awesome. I love that so much. I'm all for finding the gray areas in rule sets and trying to exploit them. And he very clearly said there's nothing in the rules that says that I can't eat balls. And he did it. And did it work? Probably not. But I don't think whether it worked or not matters. And, to be the first of what has become there's a whole era of baseball that is just the steroids era, the PEDs era. We all know about it. And to know that it really started a century earlier with a testicle and a dream, I think we need to honor that in this all.
Well, And it's similar to how you were like recontextualizing Leo Diegel there for a second. I'll remind you for just the contextualization of Galvin, like that was there because there was a newspaper article crowing like, oh shit, he did so well today. And it was right after he took this public symposium for having some of that magical elixir from Monsieur, I forget the French man's name, but it was a very French name.
Monsieur Sacre Bleu.
Something like that. So, Monsieur
That's
Je ne
his
sais
name,
quoi, Professor Je ne sais quoi has made us this amazing elixir. No, it was also, hey, look, this guy did this thing to be better at baseball.
Let's all take testicle matter in our brown guard or whatever elixir it was.
There's nothing in the rules that says we can't.
At the time, there absolutely is not. I agree with your assessment that I think Reggie Collier not the best for that. I'll go to bat for him in a moment when we have more discussion. Xavier, any thoughts on Pud Galvin or Dick Fosbury of the final trio?
I mean, my top choice was Fosbury, just because, unlike what I talked about with Burkhoff, Fosbury, like, his change to how everything works got the adoption treatment, where rather than be like, no, we can't do that, it's literally the only way that you high jump now. Like there is no alternative way to do that discipline that isn't the Fosbury flop. I mean, no one has found a better way to do it yet, and it's been 50 years. So it makes me think no one's ever going to find a better way to do it. So, I mean, it's hard for me to think of a way that you could break a sport more than just completely changing how it's actually done, because this is not a complex sport. This is, you run up to a bar and then you jump backwards over it. And he invented the jumping backwards over it part. Like, unless you find a different way to run, I don't see any other way you can break this sport. And that just is insanely impressive to me.
We have some dissent. Okay. I feel like I don't think I should argue for either of these. I feel like that goes against the spirit of this. I leave this to the two of you.
Yeah, well, while my ego is reticent to let Xavier successfully argue for the second person in two such turns, I do think, looking big picture, the person who, more, forever altered their sport, their thing, is very clearly Dick Fosbury. To your point, nobody does it a different way. There's still plenty of baseball players that don't use performance-enhancing drugs. But there are no high jumpers that don't do what Dick Fosbury did.
Pud Galvin loses because not enough players are juicing.
I've said it before. I've said it again. I've been a very vocal proponent for juicing on this podcast. And, if Bud were more influential, there would be more people doing steroids now.
Call up those dudes from the enhanced games and see if they want to make enhanced baseball.
Dude, enhanced baseball would be... There would be bench clearing brawls 3 times a game.
There would be 600-foot home runs.
Here's the thing. They can only do it... I have 2 conditions, because safety still matters. Aluminum bats, pitchers are behind the shield. Because they would actually die.
I mean, yeah, because it's turning into batting practice, essentially.
Yeah, but get rid of fuck baseball. Just steroid games, home run derby with aluminum bats.
I would watch a town-to-town traveling home run derby.
That would be amazing. This is... How do we, counter the corny fun of the Savannah Bananas? Some good old-fashioned meatheads just fucking murdering baseballs with aluminum bats and 24-inch pythons.
Oh, right. That means arms sometimes, too. Okay. First, dude, I'm sorry. I was lost there for a second. Diaz. Xavier can't win this third argument because it's you and me talking about his guys. We've got Jason Belmonte, the two-handed bowler. We've got Rodney Mullen, the guy who started jumping on skateboards. And we have Kathrine Switzer, the first female Boston Marathon official participant. So those are our 3. I look at Belmonte and I think a lot about what Xavier said with his... Burkhoff, I believe, is the individual he said from Honorable Mentions.
Yes.
And I think about how with Belmonte, like we've shown, clearly the left-handedness is growing. It's not the only thing. It does lose sometimes. It is definitely like reintroduced some stylistic differences into the sport, but I don't think if we're looking at who changed the game the most, it is like shattered the sport yet. I know that some bowling old heads feel that way, but I feel about them the same way I feel about most old heads. Switzer, I think, is a very good story. She technically is not the first one to complete the Boston Marathon. There've been the I forget exactly what term there is, but the Phantom Runners who go alongside them, the Outlaws, the
Bandits. I believe it's Bandits.
Okay, Brigand was close. I was going to get there eventually. Outlaw, Brigand, Bandit. That's the Pokemon evolution chain. So there was that element to it as well. I think her story's great. I think we should talk about her in a sec. If we're talking about, of Xavier's guys, the one who broke the game the most, I'm going to go ahead and submit. I don't think, like, I would even disagree with Xavier here saying that Dick Fosbury is the most game-changing person, game-breaking person we've discussed in this season. I would say Rodney Mullen just fundamentally adding a Z-axis to skateboarding outside of ramps. Like the ability to... He added the thing that the A button does in skateboarding video games. Like, he added the most fundamental way that we, as people who do not skateboard ourselves, interact with skateboarding. And that's not to mention everything else he put in. But I think just like I don't know if there's anything, including the Fosbury flop, more fundamental to its discipline than the Ollie. So I'm going to go ahead and say of Xavier's, I think I lean Rodney Mullen. Do you have any disagreement on that front?
Yeah, I mean, you know, as I am in marathon training season, I am fully marathon pilled. I need to go to bat for my girl Kathrine. I think the picture of the 9 guys that have been presented, the most indelible image is Kathrine Switzer continuing to run while what's his face old fuck who ended up being her friend later was like viciously trying to grab her.
Yeah. He's stepping over a line.
It is a look of pure rage on his face. And like that image definitely sticks with me. Also just the fact that like, you know, like she wasn't just like the first woman to run a marathon and, you know, she did it in 5 hours or whatever. Like she was damn good at it too, which I think is worth saying in this conversation. Not that Rodney Mullen isn't a good skateboarder and, you know, but I really got to go to bat for Kathrine.
I hear you, and I also like I'm trying to remind myself that part of the stuff we talked about was that people like Kathrine couldn't train at first until she convinced people she physically could do a marathon. Like there was definitely the idea that a lot of people held incorrectly, and I'm sure many held the correct opinion that yes, this is obviously possible, but a lot of people said like, no, you're a woman, you physically cannot run a marathon. That's true. And she definitely, yes, maybe someone else would have filled that, but she happens to be the person that is the reason that women compete in marathons worldwide, not just in Boston. That is huge. I guess it like, what do we mean by game breaking? Because I would say the discipline itself of skateboarding is more altered by Rodney Mullen's participation, but the ability to participate, the access to the game is more broken wide open by Kathrine Switzer. It's 2 different kinds of breaks. I don't want to do the bargaining that I feel like always used to take over here, but I find myself in a position to say, like, I think we go to the next round and we're talking about who beyond the 3 is still worth further consideration. To me, Kathrine Switzer is probably the leader of that group. In terms of who did the thing that this was about, broke their game. I'm going to say the guy who made it so you can jump without a ramp in skateboarding, period, did more to change skateboarding than Kathrine Switzer did to change marathon running.
I think that's fair. I'm willing to acquiesce.
Okay. So with that, we've got 3 inductees. We've got Dick Fosbury, we've got Rodney Mullen, and we've got CFG. I like made a point to try and not look up his real name this week. His plaque's going to be GFG. Like, I feel like I even got it for death.
I can't find it anywhere.
No?
Like,
Good.
It genuinely does not exist. like to my knowledge. He has done an extraordinary job of just being ZFG.
We won't know his name, but we do know 6 other names now that stand before us for us to further consider. And I just said it. Of these 6, I think there's a couple. If there can only be one, I think Kathrine Switzer, the first woman to run an official marathon relay of any kind, particularly because we have Rosie Ruiz in the hall. Like, it feels deeply wrong to have a woman famous for not completing the Boston Marathon go in and not the woman famous for completing the Boston Marathon for the first time go in. So I think Kathrine Switzer's there. I have one more from mine that I do feel strongly about, but I'm curious if either of the two of you either don't agree with Kathrine Switzer, even though we've all said we love her, or really want to start fighting for someone else.
I mean, just because I didn't get a chance to say it during it, Kathrine Switzer was number 1 on my own internal list of the one I liked. I think I love Rodney Mullen of the 3 the most, just because I grew up with the Tony Hawk games and I learned so much about Rodney Mullen through that. But as a game-breaking guy, Kathrine Switzer was by far my favorite. Like, the Diaz has already said, I don't have to reiterate the images of Jock Semple like going nuts and trying to physically assault her during the race to stop her from running will stay with me forever. Like, it's just that insane of a photo. So I'm very strongly pro Kathrine Switzer. Not to say I don't also like a lot of other people. I do like Leo Diegel a lot. I also like Pud Galvin a lot, even if it's not a replicated thing, or maybe technically it was a replicated thing. We all know that for the longest time in baseball history, they were doing all the drugs you could think of. It's only the past 10 years where they're like, no, we don't want the drugs. There's probably 80 guys in the Hall of Fame that were doing some sort of amphetamines. So, people were taking after Pud Galvin in that way, I guess.
So I love me some Pud Galvin. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't really enjoy that. I do, though. I've said it a couple times. I want to speak about Reggie Collier again for a second, because when I thought of the stories that I told, I had a feeling that Xavier was going to go hard for Fosbury. So I wasn't thinking too hard about Fosbury. And between Galvin and Collier, I think Collier, again, just from like a narrative bent, stood out to me more. Because yes, he's got the first 1,000 college season. He's the best USM quarterback of all time, asterisk. He's the first black Dallas QB to be on the roster, to appear in a game, to start, all in separate instances, which I find, but he doesn't just start. He is slowly getting his way there. He's got USFL and AFL experience, but Reggie Collier as a story, when I think about that, I think about the Alabama trilogy of games. I think about this ascendant team his sophomore season, their first ever AP ranking in school history ahead of this matchup. He's the centerpiece of this high-level offense that the coach is out here saying, we deserve more credit for what we're doing here. And then they just get stomped. And then it's junior year. It's peak Collier, Collins, Winder, Veer offense combo. It's the 1,000 season. They're doing even better when they show up again in Tuscaloosa. And they get this tie. And that tie is an immense moral victory. That tie is a win as far as USM is concerned. And at this point, you can still kind of see it as the Coach Eddie Collins story going through here, because there's been a lot of friendly back and forth between him and Saban. But then it's the senior year, and Reggie Collier establishes he is the protagonist of this trilogy, because the team takes a downturn. Collier's fine this year, and he's with the new coach just not good against Alabama according to the overall stat line. He's got only double digits in rushing and receiving yards. I don't remember the exact number, but not good. And yet all of Alabama's team points to him as not just a reason, but the reason that they got shocked with the single greatest win in program history to that point, and maybe ever, for USM. And that, all of the rest of the stuff that Reggie Collier does is great. yes, he's like part of this game-breaking wave, but aside as like a game-breaking guy, if we're talking about like guys that have stories, I think Reggie Collier as the protagonist of that Alabama trilogy is one of my favorite ones ever. Maybe that's not enough. It's 3 college games. I understand if that's insufficient, but like it is one that like must have been so goddamn satisfying that third year. My God, can you even believe it?
Well, and the thing that stood out to me as you're going through all of that as well is that he's not Brett Favre. And not Brett Favre.
He's not Brett Favre.
All these great things.
He's definitely not Brett Favre.
It would be nice to say like, hey, yeah, the podcast we have, you know, our Hall of Fame. Yeah, we have the great quarterback from Southern Miss in there. Oh, Brett Favre? No, not him. The other one, Reggie Collier.
Still only the second best guy in school history, and there is something appealing about that.
I don't know. I like Reggie. The whole, yeah. If it was between Reggie and Pud, I do think your impassioned plea has swung me over to Reggie. And we're not saying that they can't
we said
be
no
all,
limit.
all
Yeah, we said no limit. To speak to your guys, Diaz, I'm very tempted by Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. The 9/11 is, I think, a little bit of a deal breaker for me. I think I just need to like say it real quick.
No, I was gonna. I think it's entirely fair to say, like, look, for a lot of his career, he was very anti-Zionist, and then he did cross the line to anti-Semitic, and I do think that we have to acknowledge that by not allowing him in.
The two are not the same, but he did both.
He did do both. Yeah, which is unfortunate because, like, you know, the whole obsessive, you know, if it hits the rim, I count it as a miss when I'm practicing, like overcoming Tourette's, being the first 3-point shooter. All of it's great. But he is also very clearly anti-Semitic.
Yeah, it is. I don't listen to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy anymore. Like, there are some outputs where eventually the artist does a thing and are like, oh, all right, well, I enjoyed you for a time.
He crossed the line. Yeah. But yeah, with Leo Diegel, I mean, you know, we've only really talked about the putting, which, you know, is what's relevant to the category. But I just keep going back to the fact that he was playing 3 times the amount of holes that a player has to play to win a major in only 2 more days. He was playing 36 holes a day for 6 days in a row to be able to win his championships. And like it's truly absurd. It is a physical feat at that point.
Yeah. And there's like the match play, which was really fun to know that like that was so much of a bigger thing, that was like a specialty of his, which makes sense with someone who like has this great drive and struggles with a short game to some extent. And there's like the Ryder Cup career being part of that very early on. There's the fact that the end of his career is due to like a friendly drunken wrestling incident that just fucks his arm up too bad and he can't play golf anymore. Like that's all really funny. I like, okay, so Kathrine Switzer's in. We've got 4 inductees. Kathrine Switzer is in with the other 3. I don't know that I feel strongly enough about Jason Belmonte.
That's fine. I'm not going to get too greedy here.
Yeah. We're not about Abdul Rauf. We've got Diegel, we've got Collier, we've got Galvin. 5 feels like a good class size to me. I think we look at these 3 and we pick one more. I think we've got 4. I think 5 out of 9 feels like the correct class size to me. And feel like if you feel strongly about it, we'll do whatever we do here. This is a democracy. But I think we pick one more from the remaining 3 that have kind of been put forward here.
It's interesting because of the 3, I think I you know what? Of the 3, I can't tell who I like better. But James, you gave the most impassioned defense of one of your guys. Like, I'm sure Diaz loves Leo Diegel as well, but your defense of Collier was very persuasive compared to anything else. And with that, it's hard for me to like say that if we're having one more in, it shouldn't be Reggie Collier.
I'll alter it slightly. If I can have some say in this, in the guys that I nominated, I enjoyed the story of Pud Galvin very much. I think Pud Galvin's a great dead ball guy. That's like even pre-dead ball to some extent, man. But if I can pick one to kind of be in this final consideration, I would put it up as Reggie Collier or Leo Diegel for a final spot. And I don't like. There's a lot to like about Leo Diegel. And like the way that Diaz, you talked about it. Okay, here's my question: Diaz, you know golf better. I believe that you probably have a higher combined sum of knowledge about college football and golf than I do. Are people out there? Do you think, just in general, one of these guys has like oh, you should know about this guy if you're in the know reputation over the other? Like, do you think there are golfers out there, but Leo Diegel was a problem back in the day? Or is that said more about perhaps a certain USM quarterback not named Brett Favre?
If you were to frame it from that perspective, I would definitely say Leo Diegel. Like, he was the classic, your favorite golfer's favorite golfer was Leo Diegel back in the 20s. And especially, with if you watch like his Hall of Fame induction video, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of quotes from golf historians or, contemporaries, quoting his contemporaries that, like Leo Diegel was the favorite of the best of the time. And, I don't necessarily think that framing is what we need to ultimately go with to differentiate between the two. But if we are using that framing, Leo Diegel is more inseparable from the history of golf than Reggie Collier is from the history of college football.
That's not everything, but that's not nothing. Like deep down, the one of these that I put forward, Reggie Collier, I think is the one I feel strongly about. But I think Leo Diegel's great. If we used to do 15 out of 27 in the previous setups, 5 out of 9 feels like the right number to me. I'm going to cast my final vote for Reggie Collier. Let's be a democracy about it.
Sure. And I've said this probably 1,000 times in history of this podcast. I will be the protest vote for Leo Diegel. But I do acknowledge that it is most likely a protest vote.
I mean, it's not a protest vote. This is like a legitimately tough decision because, again, I think I may have liked Leo Diegel more. I thought James's defense of Reggie Collier was really good, but then you just gave a great defense of Leo Diegel.
Yeah,
so this is really tough. I think in my heart I have to go with Leo Diegel just because I think his impact may have been more like I think Reggie Collier was the first in what became a really important part of college football. I don't know if it can all be really traced though to him or if he is one of many. Leo Diegel, I feel like just based off of the way golf is, and every golfer would of an age would have watched Leo Diegel golf and learn from that. I just think that what he did might have been more game breaking to the sport of golf, in my opinion. I really like I said, James, I think I was really swayed by what you said about Reggie Collier, but I think just with everything as a whole, I think I have to vote for Leo Diegel.
I'm totally fine with those results. I want to take a moment, if we're doing this in this format, to codify something with these results with the two of you. So we're saying we do our 3, and those 3 were adhering hard to the game breaker category. I think we can all agree that's how it feels to do with the first 3. With the next 2 of 6, I guess, if that's our max. I still think there may be a day where it just feels 4. There's sometimes where I think we nail the 3. But with that one, while we're taking into some of the larger, just general guyness, it's still not full Reliti-Guy-tion. We're just looking at these independent of the rubric whatsoever. We're still trying to consider that rubric somewhat of. We're still looking at them through this.
I think we're still trying to look at the rubric since it's one litigation at one time based for a seasonal rubric.
Okay.
So I think it's a little different than Reliti-Guy-tion where we're looking more at because we're not comparing against the same rubric. When it's Reliti-Guy-tion, we have guys from multiple different weeks of different criteria, so we really couldn't compare against criteria. For all of these, they're all game breakers, so we're able to still make that comparison. At least that's my opinion.
Well, and in that case, like, as much as I love Reggie Collier, I'll go ahead and even, like, officially, just for the record, switch my vote, because between those two, I do think Leo Diegel changed things more. I won't even, like, try and argue that Reggie Collier changed things more. I thought we were evaluating, like, strictly on guyness, and I'm more than happy to say Leo Diegel takes that one. And so, Diaz, for the first time in legitimately, like, 5 months, we have some honors to hand out.
We do have some honors. It's been a long, long time since these hall's doors have been opened. But it is time for them to spring open once more. And to welcome in, while they're not from Michigan, with the exception of Leo Diegel, a fabulous 5 that is coming into our hall. And they are Leo Diegel, ZFG, Rodney Mullen, Kathrine Switzer, and Richard Dick Fosbury. These are the 5 guys of this season who have very clearly broken their game for the better. They have made their games better in the process, and we have nothing that we can do except for to bow at the altar of their guyness and to welcome them into our illustrious hall.
It is an honor and a privilege to expand the residency of this hall once again to some new, very well-deserving guys, and quite the quintet. And it has been quite the time sorting them out with the trio here in front of you. But this trio can't do everything alone. No, we need some help. And it is our pleasure, as always, to thank the people that help us. That includes producer Craig and all the coders behind him for making this recording possible, and musical director Don Ham for that lovely theme music. And you know who else helps us out? You guys, by checking in and listening to the show. And multiple people sending me the story about Argentinian horse clones. I appreciate that I've developed enough of a brand where 3 separate people were like, hey, did you hear about the Argentinian Polo horse clone story? And one of them I got to say no to. And 2 I got to say yes, which in some ways is even better. It's a delight to record this and share this with you all. We are happy to have shared these guys. We are happy in the coming weeks to share some fun guest episodes coming up while we do our regular interstitial bit before the next season. We are also going to be working, hopefully with you all, in deciding what category that's going to be next season. Very soon, we'll put out on our social, and you can find all of our socials on bit.ly/rememberthatguy, all one word, all lowercase. That's where it will link to, among other things, say our Blue Sky account, where there'll be a poll at some point in the near future with 3 category ideas, one from each of us. We would love if you all could help us decide what the next one that we dive into for season will be, and that will be up there. And, we'll post it. Go follow us there. Listen to the show here. Rate and review it, and share it with your friends wherever. Do all those things. They're great, and they help us feel good about this thing that is fun to do either way. It has been fun to be with you all. That is everything I have other than to say watch the tour. Anything else from you guys?
One more thing. Please, God, I have suffered enough. No more injuries for Philadelphia 76ers. I've hit my quota for my lifetime. Please. I'm begging you, God. Please.
If another one happens by the time this episode comes out, I'll feel really bad, but I will still be one of your hosts, James.
And I'll still be the very special guest, Xavier.
And I'll be Diaz. And while she was robbed, I want to acknowledge the very successful WWE Women's Championship reign of Io Guy.
I'm just thinking about like someone taking like LeBron's spit and in like 20 years just being like, here is my new basketball team. It is a clone of LeBron James's that I've been cultivating in my basement through childhood and adulthood.
Well, see, the next step of this, because there was a question that was going viral on Instagram, and it was, who would win between 5 TJ McConnell-sized Victor Wembanyama's or 5 Victor Wembanyama-sized TJ McConnells? And I feel like cloning isn't exactly there, but we're getting close enough that we could one day answer that question.
I mean, give me the 5 Wemby-sized TJs.
Yeah, imagine 5
You never get a shot off.
5 7'4" people just diving for every single loose ball. Like,
yeah, unless they destroy their own like ACLs and Achilles, I don't think you ever get a shot off.
Another way to like think of like this similar exercise. How tall would TJ McConnell have to be the best player in the NBA?
6'6".
I think he would still have to be a little taller. Like, I feel like 6'8". A 6'8" TJ McConnell. Because if we're talking about a 6'8" TJ McConnell, then we're essentially talking about Ben Simmons with a mid-range jump shot.
Depends on his wingspan. If he's
True.
6'6" with a 6'8" wingspan or 6'8" with a 6'6" wingspan, those are two very different things.
I think you would almost rather be 6'6" with a 6'8" wingspan. Not everybody can be Desmond Bane. I'm pretty sure he has a shorter wingspan than his height.
Diaz getting plans for genetically engineering his first child. You're going to... Doctor, I know this embryo is going to be 6'6" with a 6'8" wingspan. Is that correct?
Dude, that would be... I would pay a decent amount of money to know that. Like, listen, pick the most athletic egg, pick the most athletic sperm, and let's min-max this shit real quick.
It's gonna happen. We already know that's like a thing that's going to be like fairly standard in the future. Right, James?
Right. I heard future. That's the only word I heard.
You have endorsed genetic engineering, Xavier, James.